Hi guys, this week there's 7 things that you should have in your screenplay or should be doing when you're writing. It's 7 things to be better at screenwriting. If I don't get to 7, you get all the way to the end, there's only 6. Tell me I screwed up in the comments below. I've got some notes down here. I think there's 7 of them, but let's get started. The first thing is you need to have an aim, a story. I know this sounds really basic, but your character, and we'll get to your character in a second, there has to be a reason to the story. We're going to go blow up a Death Star. We're going on a road trip. We are going to try to get into a poker tournament. Something is starting here and ending there. It needs to have an aim, a purpose for what the story is going to achieve. The typical one people always say is, I want to travel from here to there. I want to travel from where I live in the hills down to the harbour in Sydney. So that's going to be the aim of the story. Don't think of it overly complex. Don't get too complex in your aim. Some people will do this. You tend to add so many things into it. But if you've got that basic idea, the real simple from here to here, don't say, oh, and in that trip your person has to get redemption. That's all things you can add later. But make sure you have an understanding from here to there, and make sure that your story portrays that. Otherwise, people get confused. They're like, what's this all about? Why am I watching this? I don't really understand it. This person's trying to get from here to there. I understand that, and I'm going to learn about him on his journey. I'm going to learn about her background. I'm going to learn about her life. I'm going to learn about the obstacles. And the obstacles in that journey is the rest of your story. But at first, you have to have a clear goal. What is going to happen? That's the main thing. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to have a real character. Your character has to be believable. They have to be realistic. And I say this a bit. You're not going to have the 15-year-old that suddenly gets, brought into the FBI and given this important mission. I was watching something called The Bricklayer on Netflix. I don't even know if I finished it. I don't think I did. I think I went to bed and did some writing. I wrote on an iPad, which is just over there somewhere. There was a evil villain that everyone thought was dead. Suddenly he's reappeared. He used to have a handler. So rather than, and I've worked in these sorts, not the CIA and FBI, but I've worked in this sort of regulatory law enforcement area and in the intelligence world. When someone resigns and leaves, you don't bring them back out of retirement to fix a problem that they screwed up. It doesn't happen. They don't have jurisdiction anymore. They're not a sworn officer. They no longer have powers under legislation or government. They just don't do that. You don't team them up with someone that's in the CIA. It just felt so tired and old, and it just wasn't working. It was so unrealistic. And the other thing that was unrealistic about this story was Aaron Eckhart, great actor, love him in everything he does. He's a really, really good actor. But he looked like an old retired guy. And when he got beat up, he got cut and scars and all this, and he's going to these big fancy dinner parties looking like a beaten up homeless guy. Again, not realistic. If you need James Bond, get James Bond. If you want a guy who can look like he's fitting in high society, he has to look like he fits in the high society. You're not going to send me to be an undercover guy in an outlaw biker gang. Look, no tats, old, not an outlaw biker, right? You get a young guy that's tatted up, that looks like an outlaw biker, to go work in the outlaw biker gangs. That has to be realistic. Otherwise, people will not buy in. Otherwise, they realise they're watching a movie. I'm watching a movie. Fantastic. Okay, I'm not going to be absorbed. I'm not going to start to engage with those characters. I'm watching an ant farm. I have no buy-in. If you can make them feel like they're really in that world, even if it's a world I don't understand, it's female professional wrestling. I don't follow professional wrestling, and I have no idea what it's like to be a female athlete. But if the character is real and I can see that person really operating in that world, suddenly I've got buy-in because I'm wondering what that world's like, how they're going to navigate the world. Wall-E, no one's a little robot, but people still buy into Wall-E. And you understand that. But if this person is just unrealistic, doesn't look like they existed, I say this a lot, doesn't look like they existed before the film, it definitely looks like they're not going to exist after the film. they're not realistic. That has to be a realistic person with a well-stated goal to achieve. Suddenly we've got a good story coming along. If you can do those, you've got the people halfway in. They're starting to buy in. Complexity. You don't have complexity for complexity's sake. Like I said, someone's travelling from here up in the hills down to Sydney Harbour. Suddenly there's not all this unusual complexity that's not really related to that. Why am I making that trip? Oh, because some political intrigue or whatever. The complexity has to be either based on something that's unfair, which drives my need to rectify it. It's an unresolved issue, so it's something from my past I'm going to work on now to resolve. It's not my fault. Or, this is even a better one, that it is a making of my own fault. So I've done something which is said about these bad events that I'm now trying to rectify. And by rectifying, I could be making it better, I could be making it worse, I could be discovering something. And don't be episodic when you come up with these things. So it's not like a level in a game. So Craig's travelling from his house down to Sydney Harbour. He gets outside and his car won't start. So he borrows a car from his neighbour. He's driving down, the M2 was blocked. So now he gets onto the M2 somehow and he keeps driving. Now the harbour bridge has been blown up. Oh, okay, so he turns around, comes back and he takes the harbour tunnel. The harbour tunnel, so it's not like next level, next level, next level, next level. It should be a continuation of issues. Some get resolved, some don't, some compound, some go for longer and smaller issues get resolved inside it. There should be complexities that relate to the story, and the complexities should be driven by the decisions that your character makes. If I just described everything that happened, not a single one of those things were driven by me. I'm a passive character. If I car didn't start, I borrowed my neighbour's car. So, okay, I stole my neighbour's car, not borrowed it. I didn't ask Ian for it, I just went and stole his car. And I'm driving off. Now I'm being chased by the police. During that police, I get onto the M2, I cause an accident that blocks the M2. These are all obstacles now that are of my causing by my action. None of those things would have happened if I didn't do those things. I'm now active. The story is now active. What's driven me to the city could be an unresolved issue. These things begin to feel more realistic. No coincidences. There's a very, very old saying that says you can have one coincidence and that gets your story started. You can never, I would say, of course I'm going to be proven wrong, put the comments below if I'm wrong, 100% sure I will be. You can't have a coincidence that benefits your character. It looks super lazy. That's the thing I've always had about the Lord of the Rings. Why didn't they just call the eagles at the start? Fly there and people go, well, the eagles have agency. They chose not to help them. Show that they called the eagles and the eagles refused. And then as it's getting more harrowing, the eagles come on side. Suddenly that shows the eagles have agency. It adds a bit more depth to the story that the eagles are now some sort of arbiter of good and bad, that the eagles have a say in the future of Middle Earth. Otherwise they just look like that thing. Well, you could have gone on a butterfly and had the eagles turn up anytime. It was a coincidence that the eagles just happened to fly underneath when they fell. All these sorts of things. You know, coincidence is bad, that you just happen to turn up and bump into someone who's a weapons expert when you need to get a so-and-so, so-and-so. In The Bricklayer, he turns up. It hasn't been planned for a million years or anything. He just turns up, he meets one of his old partners who just happened to have built a 700 or 500 horsepower AMG Mercedes. Yeah, okay, fine. You've got 100 grand laying around to build yourself a supercar. Excellent. And it didn't look like this guy had 100 grand laying around. He looked virtually homeless, living in some backwater shed somewhere. You know, the guy was bringing drugs in for his pet dog that had cancer. If you've got enough money to spend all that on a car, you'd obviously be able to, care for your dog that has cancer. It just made no sense. But it was also a coincidence that the guy just happened to build a 700 horsepower supercar. And there's the other thing about being, realistic. They're driving this super fast Mercedes up to these luxury events. I'm not saying that I've got, I'm not hanging out with Murdochs or whatever. But, you also don't see hotted up cars at those events. You see very expensive cars. You see Bentleys and Maseratis and things like that. You don't see hotted up, gangster, pimped up Mercs. So no coincidences. People, and when I said be realistic, real characters, be realistic in everything else. I'm going back to that. In the bricklayer, these people did not fit in to these events. They're turning up talking to ambassadors. They're talking to the head of foreign affairs, or the guy that's now running the CIA or the FBI, the spy force in Europe. And you just walk up to them and talk to them at a party, and you look like you're a beaten up nobody, and she's this elegant person. She looked like she fitted in for sure. You didn't look like you had the right to talk to her. That made no sense. You have to be consistent in your look and feel in your story as well. I just finished reading something for somebody. I didn't even actually finish. I got a few pages in when I started giving them notes. It was about a rock star with a drug problem. Every single person in the story was judgmental of the rock star and their drug problem. That's not how it works. If you've been around any music whatsoever or watched any TV or any documentaries, everyone's on drugs. Everyone's drinking heavy. Everyone's partying all the time. The band members aren't wiggling fingers going, oh, that's really bad. They're all doing it. Mick Taylor joined the Rolling Stones as the second guitarist after Brian Jones, and then went to France because they had tax problems. They were exiles, tax exiles. And he said, hang out with the Rolling Stones, of course you develop a drug addiction. You didn't have one when you started with them, but of course you would develop a drug addiction. Hang out with the Rolling Stones, everyone's taking drugs. So that wasn't realistic, that everyone's judging this person for taking drugs and telling them they've got to get to AA, like the other band members and their sister and everyone. Lindsay Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac actually said, record companies love you to have a drug problem. It makes you easy to manipulate. They can just treat you like a child. The only thing you have to do is worry about your drugs and your music, and they'll take care of everything else. It's perfect for them. They'll just keep making money. You just have to be realistic in your world. If you set up rules where everyone is judgmental except one person, and you stick to that, that's fine. But if it's a world that everyone already knows, and that's not how that world works. Another thing they did in a bricklayer, they were transferring $100 million of Bitcoin. We've all seen bank transactions on the internet. We all have a banking app. We tap for bills now. You don't tap for the bill at your supermarket and then watch your phone go tick, 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 tick. You watch the money transfer to the bank. That's what happened here. He's getting $100 million in Bitcoin, and you see the $100 million counting down like this, which gives them time to have one of those conversations you don't have. Like, why are you doing this? This is terrible. Blackmail's below you. Oh, I'm getting back the world. Oh, you're going to start a world war. Oh, all this sort of, and in the background, the money's transferring through. Well, they didn't actually drop coins. A Bitcoin isn't a coin. It's not dropped into a counter going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 100 billion. You click, it's a blockchain, some data goes, but done, $100 million exchanged. There's a story of a guy holding up his Bitcoin thing on television telling about how much money he's made. Someone screenshotted it, got it, and stole all his Bitcoins. They had the numbers, they know the keys, bang, done. That's how fast it happens. It's not this count. Realism, because I was watching that and I was actually laughing at it, thinking that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Be realistic. You need to be visual in your story as well. The other thing, you've got to give geography to a room. Right? You've got to tell where people are standing, not in detail. Not in detail. At school, skoll.com. There's a screenwriting group there. I think I'll put a link below. I will put a link below. They do a monthly challenge, 5 to 10 pages or 1 to 5, whatever it is. And they give you 3 prompts and you write something. I normally knock it out in the first day or so. And they're good fun. I love doing those little things. In this one, There's a room of people. It's Christmas Eve. Everyone's turned up to have like Christmas Eve dinner. This person's turned up and dropped a bombshell. Bit of an argument happening. Someone in the group rings the police. We don't even see the phone call. It's unimportant. The sheriff appears at the door. Now, I just said the room's full of people and he's walked in and said, everyone take a seat. And then I've only given direction for 2 of the people. They sit on the arm of the lounge. Everyone else takes a seat. So we know that there's a lot of people there and there's only space for them on the lounge. Then I say, the sheriff gets, I think it's Kelly and Ruby, and ushers them into the kitchen. That's all you need to know. He's behind them, he's ushering them into the kitchen. It's not like he's pushing them ahead, Ruby's just ahead of this. You don't need that much detail, but you need to put people in a space. I'm not picking on the person with the Rockstar screenplay, but I've just finished it this morning, the bit I read. They're in the dressing room, the green room, and they're having an argument. I think the Rockstar and her sister are having an argument. They described the room was really messy, stuff, bottles everywhere. Great, okay, 2 lines, enough. Then another paragraph, another 2 lines. It looks like Motley Crue had gone through. We didn't need to know that because that's just restating the same thing. It's messy. Don't know how big the room is. Didn't say it's a large room or it's a small dressing room. There was a sofa over there. That there's something here and a mirror. There's none of that. You can say the typical dressing room, mirror on the wall and a lounge on the side. That's all you needed. People know how big a dressing room is. And then there's all this dialogue back and forth. I don't know if they're standing, pacing, standing toe to toe, like a set of boxers about to punch on. If one's sitting, one's standing. None of that. It was just disembodied voices talking the way down the page. And then finally it says, one of them leans against the counter. Oh, there's a counter in the room. Where? So you've got to be you've got to place people in a room because we're visual. People have to be able to visualize your story. It's a visual medium. And you can't do the show don't tell. We've all heard that. You can't talk about how, this is the 100th time. Well, you can if you do it cleverly. I once saw in a screenplay, it was a husband and wife having an argument, and the wife said, you know what pisses me off? And the husband said, what? But in the parentheticals said, for the 100th time. So I told the actor how to say it. Everyone's felt that. Oh, we're having the same argument again. Oh, I can't believe it. Yeah, you know what pisses me off? What? Everyone knows that feeling, that we're going over the same old ground. But it had to be done visually. So we didn't, big line, it was an acting prompt. You have to situate people in a room, have to give them visuals, have to say whether this rock and roll star had tats, whether she was bone thin because she was a drug addict, whether she was sickly. Obviously, we didn't get any of that. They did make some references that were very generic, and I knew them a little bit. She looked like character name, whatever, Kelly, 25, looks like Courtney Cox when she was 25. I don't know what Courtney Cox looked like when she was 25. I know Kurt died at 27. Was Courtney younger than Kurt by 3 years? So I know what she looked like when Kurt died. After Kurt died, she was in the band Hole and she had that really cool song, Celebrity Skin. But was she 30 then? Or was she 24? It was a reference. It was a visual reference, but no one had context to it. Or I didn't have context to it. And I grew up in the grunge era, you know what I mean? I was in my 20s, late 20s, admittedly. But that was my bread and butter era, and I couldn't make that leap. I couldn't get that thing of what Courtney looked like when she was 24. Your story has to have an end. The aim either has to be reached or failed, but we have to know that it was reached or failed. We have to have an end. You can set things up for a franchise. You can set things up for an ongoing story. But we have to have an end. Otherwise people go, that was stupid. What did I just watch that for? There was no resolution to that. It's just stopped. If you want an example, and these are blasts from the past, but we're filmmaking screenwriters. We should have some history. We shouldn't just be wanting to write Marvel movies because we love Marvel movies. We should have some background. We should watch old films like John Borman's Deliverance. We should get a historic thing that can feed into us that we can make into modern films. So I'm going to mention 2 oldies. Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper, one of my favourites of all time, and Peter Fonda and Jack Nicholson and a few other people. Motorcyclists heading across America, just living the great life, living the freedom. Peter Fonda decided that he had to make that movie when he heard the American Academy sort of say, I'm sick of motorcycle films, crime and drugs. And he went, oh, I'm going to make a film about crime, drugs and motorcycles. So him and Dennis Hopper on choppers, the coolest looking bikes, Captain America and Buffalo Bill, heading across America. They've got cocaine hidden in their fuel tank. They're selling that to fund their adventures. And it's just a series of like vignettes. It's sort of episodic, but not really episodic because they're going on an adventure. It's a road trip. Road trips tend to be a little bit episodic. But they also bring Jack Nicholson with them. At one point they meet him, he's a uptight sort of guy and he comes on a bit of an adventure, so he breaks up that episodic feel of it. They go into this, like a roadside diner, they have a bit of an argument with the locals and they head off. And the locals kill them. The movie ends with them being murdered on the side of the road. I'll put some images up here of the bikes getting blown up and all that sort of stuff. And then there's this fantastic long shot of a river, the road beside the river, and the flame and smoke of burning motorcycles raising. And that's how it ends. That America couldn't allow these guys to exist. The middle America, that part right there, wasn't going to tolerate modern hippie America coming in. It was going to be killed off. So they were going on a road to nowhere. They had no real aim. They were travelling across America, maybe going to California, I can't remember. I haven't watched it in a long time. I should watch it again. I really feel like watching it again. But they were just killed off because of who they were and what they'd seen and what they did. So the movie had an end. They didn't reach their goal of getting to where they were going, and it was stopped because of society. Two Lane Blacktop. Now this movie should have had a huge following. It had everything going for it. James Taylor and Dennis Wilson. Dennis was the drummer out of the Beach Boys, arguably the biggest band America had ever produced. James Taylor, you know, When I Call Out Your Name, all those great songs, folk rock star, played at Woodstock, massive star in his own right. Oh, this is really embarrassing. And a female actress. Anyway, Dennis played a mechanic, James Taylor was the driver. They had a really hotted up 1956 Chevy, and they were going around America racing for pink slips and for money, and so they were that sort of outlaw street races as well. So you had a similar sort of counterculture thing going, which was really good. Then Laurie, she joins their group. She's a hitchhiker. She ends up sleeping with both of them. There's a little bit of jealousy. That sort of duo falls apart. Then she leaves, so she comes in, destroys their relationships, and she's off. It's a good little story. It's going along. James Taylor, great singer-songwriter, can't act his way out of a paper bag. Dennis Wilson, Laurie acts them both off the page, and Oates is in it. Warren Oates is in it as the rival. He's the antagonist. He's got this really nice yellow, don't know, can't remember, and he wants to race them. So it's this race across between the two of them. It's a really good little story, and then it just stops. Literally just stops. I'm going to put an image up here, up there, of what they did for the film. It's the worst ending of a film ever. James Taylor is in another street race. Dennis is left. The girl's left. He's by himself now. The race starts. They head off, and then they do that. The film just burns through. Might have been a great hippie ending for its era. Everyone might go, yeah, his journey's never ending. But it doesn't say his journey's never ending. It doesn't give you any way of resolving. It just stops. And it made no real sense at the time. And now, I was a small kid when it was made. I was like 5 or 6 when An Easy Rider and all those things were made. And I'm 60 now. And I still love those sorts of films. It still doesn't make sense to me. It still annoys the crap out of me because it's not great acting. It's a good story. Warren Oates is amazing. And it just stops. And there was such a lost opportunity. You could have had him, this never-ending struggle that he was never willing to grow up, that this part of the world was falling apart for him. You could have put another character in there You could have had Dennis's guy go off to the Vietnam War or something and becoming part of the real world, and he was just going to stay in this weird counterculture, and it was aging out around him. He'd lost his ability to whatever. That could have been an ending, and you could have gone, okay. I mean, I've got a little bit of a Western I've been playing with the idea of where this old guy doesn't want the old West to leave, but it is. Trains are coming, telegraph's coming, modern's coming, laws are coming. The old West is dying off. He doesn't fit anymore. He's becoming pushed to one side. That's the story I'm writing. And we have the aim there. And we have a story there. We have that. This just ended for no apparent reason. So that's those. Thank you for everyone who's been helping out and leaving comments and things. It's been great. I haven't been posting a lot. There's been a few little tragedies here and there. And I'm not here for the likes, and I'm not here for they're really good. Trust me, they're really good. But I'm not here to grow this channel. I'm not monetizing this channel in any way. I'd like to mention Script Revolution. If you join Script Revolution, it is free. And you can sell screenplays through it. I have done that. I've made some contacts with some producers that have gone on to become bigger producers, and I'm still in contact with them. I'm going to send Christmas cards out this week. It's that sort of place. It is free. Or you can become a rock star, which is you pay them a little bit of money. I think it's maybe $50 a year, like $1 a week. And that gives you a whole lot of stuff. And the reason I'm saying that is I can give you 20% off writerduet. That's 20% done. Cost you nothing. Away you go. I make no money. Done. But if you're a member over at Script Revolution, not only do you get the great service of a place where you can hold your scripts, you get downloads when people download your script or actually request to download your script. You can read their profile, see if they're the sort of producer you want to work with. You can approve it. They then get hold of your screenplay, and I've got a paper trail. It was sent to this person, you know who they are, there's emails, it's all there. So you can prove if it ever becomes one of those things where you go, they stole my screenplay. Here's all the evidence. Here's the server logs. Here's everything from Script Revolution. It tells me that's how they got hold of my screenplay. But if you become a rock star, you get all these benefits, things I wouldn't use like consulting services and stuff, but you may love those. But you also get 30% off writerduet. So I can't use my own discount code, of course, at writerduet, but I use my Rockstar service at writerduet to get a discount on writerduet because I use everything on writerduet. If you're going to get writerduet, I'd also maybe suggest spend a bit more cash and get the premium super duper, I don't know what they call it, get the best one, because the voice automation and now the AI voice automation is fantastic. I just did a screenplay, aligned all the voices to the characters, so it performs the screenplay. And when I hear a line that bumps, just pause it, fix the line, go back up. Now the line reads great. It's such a good service. Give that one a go. Until next time, guys, happy end of year. I don't know what you celebrate. I celebrate it with family, but have fun and keep writing. Bye.